The Greater Centerville Historians organized in the year 2000. The purpose of the organization is to preserve the history of the Township of Centerville, Cleveland and surrounding area. Gerald O'Neill, Charlie Bauer, Richard Wiegand, and myself, Kathleen Sixel, were the founding members. In 1831, the territory south of Green Bay was sold to the U.S. government by the Native Americans who had title to the land. The consideration was the promise of a reservation in another state. The Township of Centerville was established in 1850. The township had a village called Centerville. The reason for the hamlet's original name of Centerville was, in the days of the Indians, there was a trail along Lake Michigan between Manitowoc and Sheboygan. This heavenly spot was exactly at the halfway mark, so the early white man gave it the name Centerville. In 1849, the village of Centerville was surveyed and laid out in lots and blocks. The village of Centerville was renamed Hika when the Postmaster General informed the village leaders that another Centerville was located in the state. When it became time for Centerville to be renamed, a judge in Manitowoc by the name of Albert Schmidt would take kids hiking. The judge said, "You can't call a town hiking, so why not make it Hika?" Thus, the village of Centerville became Hika. In the early years, Centerville had the vision of becoming a lake port. To encourage ships to dock there, 2 piers were built into Lake Michigan. Many German immigrants arrived by schooners, and the village began to grow. The village had a brick factory, stores, schools, a Lutheran and a Catholic church, mill, saloons, blacksmith shop, and a fire department, and a brewery. When the brewery was built, the settlement began to flourish. But when fire destroyed the brewery, the largest industry, there was no longer a need for the harbor facilities. So ended this chapter of the development of Hika. 2 miles west of Hika, another settlement known as St. Wendel began to grow. It had a Catholic church, a general store with a connected dance hall, and a post office was also located in the complex, a funeral parlor, and at one time a motel. With the clearing of the forest, tilling of the land began. This prompted the exporting of lumber and grains. The farmers of Centerville looked forward to the building of a railway since they had a serious problem transporting their products. In 1873, the Milwaukee, Lakeshore, and Western Railroad was built between the settlements of Hika and St. Wendel and was named Centerville Station. In 1880, Centerville Station was renamed Cleveland after President Grover Cleveland. Cleveland, at that point in time, owes its growth to the fact that the Township of Centerville was a rich farming community, and farmers from miles around would bring products to be shipped by rail or ship. The village of Cleveland had several grocery stores, a furniture store, a funeral parlor, several saloons, Lutheran church, hardware stores, several gas stations, newspaper, photographer studio, several car dealerships, cheese factory, several feed mills, livestock yard, and lumber yards. The biggest business was the Cleveland Co-op, which offered many types of services. With the failing of grain crops, the farmers began dairy farming. With the abundance of milk, another industry began, cheese and butter making. Local cheese factories dotted the countryside. One-room schools were usually built near the cheese factories, so children would have a ride to school when farmers brought their milk. In 1958, Hika, St. Wendel, and Cleveland incorporated into the village of Cleveland. In 1968, the Cleveland Elementary School was built. The Township of Centerville has seen many farming changes, but dairy farming is still the primary vocation. Today, Cleveland is known as the seat of Lakeshore Technical College, which offers an educational alternative to 4-year colleges. An ancient proverb states, When an old person dies, a library burns to the ground. These words were the inspiration for organizing the Greater Centerville Historians. We hope to preserve as many memories as possible.
Okay, we're here with our meeting that Mr. Bauer will indicate what we're all about and the date that we have today and things like that, and he'll do other things. Go right ahead, Mr. Bauer.
Yes, today is November 12th, 2007, and this is the gathering of the Greater Centerville Historians. And it's the day after Veterans Day, so after our formal introductions, we're going to stand and say the pledge.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlie. And I'll start with Charlie and come back to you folks at the end, okay? And Charlie, you're going to identify yourself and where you're from.
I'm Charlie Bauer. I'm from the town of Newton.
Okay, thank you. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Willard Matthias from the village of Cleveland.
Thank you. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Irene Dine from the village of Cleveland.
Thank you.
I'm Alice Matthias from the same location.
Very good. I like that.
Dolores Crest from Cleveland.
Very good.
Kathy Wagner from Cleveland.
Good.
Joe Kress, town of Mosel.
Town of Mosel, different one, okay. Go right ahead, sir.
Walter Kress, East Cleveland.
East Cleveland, wonderful. I like that.
Eugene Weiser, town of Wendel.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. Go right ahead, please.
John Wiegand, town of Centerville.
Okay, thank you. Go right ahead.
Naomi Schmidt from Elkhart Lake.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Dan Schmidt, Elkhart Lake.
Good, thank you. And who do you have here, please?
Melvin Yee from Cleveland.
Okay.
Audrey Ertl from St. Nazianz.
Ah, different tone there. I like that too. And who do you have here, please?
Carl Ziegler from Cleveland.
Thank you.
Paul Jacoby from Cleveland.
Thank you.
Frederick Jacoby from Manitowoc.
Thank you, friend.
Marie Pippert, Cleveland.
Good.
Edith Litsey, Cleveland.
Thank you.
Rick Beiersdorf, town meeting.
Thank you.
Victor Schill from Glenbeulah.
Okay, thank you. We got a gentleman that will be a presenter this evening, and he'd like to identify himself, please.
Brian Kalashewski from Cleveland.
Thank you.
And Christine Kalashewski, also Cleveland.
Very good. Thank you very much. And then I think we'll go with what Mr. Bauer would indicated.
At this time, I'd ask everybody to stand, and we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag in honor of all the veterans, seeing it's Veterans Day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we got a gentleman here who is taking over for some other lady who is usually our spark plug, but he'll take over and do a well job here. Go right ahead.
I'm Charlie Bauer, and I'm sitting in for Kathy Sixel, the award-winning Kathy Sixel. And I might add at this time, she's someplace in the Mediterranean, either in Italy or Greece or one of them countries there. And she gave me the clipboard. I'm supposed to tell you what the simple rules are. You raise your hand so Jerry can come over with the camera to videotape you. Always state your full name. Don't use nicknames for people that you know. And this one everybody violates here. Can't be up. Don't visit with your neighbors when the camera is on. I know that's a tough one. And if we have any photographs, please pass them all the way around so everybody can get a chance to see them. And if anybody has any ideas of upcoming meetings, what we should cover, you can let me know after our meeting tonight. And our topic tonight is going to be the Hickory House. And we have Chris and Brian here. And we're going to turn it over and have them explain what they know about the building. And we're going to need a lot of input from you people. I know Kathy Wagner down here has a lot of information on the Hickory House. And but we're going to start with these two. And if you have any questions or anything you want to add at any time, just put your hand up and somebody will indicate to Jerry how to get to you.
Thank you.
And I think that's all I have, Jerry.
Good job, Charlie. Okay, I got a young lady here who is our presenter this evening along with her husband. And they'd like to start out by identifying themselves and go on from there, please. Go right ahead.
My name is Christine Kalashewski. I'm here with my husband, Brian Kalashewski. We are owners of the Hickory House at 1024 Hickory Street in the
Okay.
village of Cleveland. We first purchased the building in, would have been October of 2001. We then opened in May of 2002. There's quite a lot of history behind this building, as I've learned with moving to Cleveland. I guess I could just start out by saying what we've had to do to get to where we're at. There was a fire, electrical fire, that made the building become
Condemned.
condemned, basically.
Okay.
It sat for a year. We were living in the Milwaukee area at the time, in West Allis, and we purchased it, and for about 6 months, every weekend for 6 months, we came up to work on the building, because we had to tear down the side. It's a 2-story building, and there was 2 apartments above, one above the bar area and one above the dining area. And it was the apartment above the dining area that actually, where the fire started.
Okay.
So we had to actually tear down, which actually my husband did most of that work. I say we,
Wow.
but it was more him tearing down that.
Mostly tearing down, yeah.
Tore down that, and then we actually had to put a new roof on the other side that we left standing. Put that on the middle of January that year.
Yep.
And then we actually moved up here in March, April
April.
2002, and we lived in a camper in the backyard,
Oh, my goodness.
because we had to gut the apartment above the bar where we now reside.
Okay.
But it was not livable conditions at that time, so we had to completely gut it. But we did open up for business. We just, we were inside the building all day. We'd go back out to the camper, go to sleep, get up, and the birds woke us up in the morning, and go back out and continue building. So it was quite a process. It took us, we actually got into the upstairs probably by September. I think we were in upstairs because we wanted to get in before the snow flew. So we were in upstairs, and then it took about another 1.5 years to get the dining side rebuilt. We had some snags along the way. We had to be rezoned, but we were open as far as just for like sandwiches and roasted chicken and just bar food kind of at that time.
Okay.
Until we got the dining room opened up.
All right.
And then we got the dining room side opened up and had a full menu installed then, with steaks and chops and ribs, and we've catered quite a few parties there now since we've been there. A lot of anniversaries, a lot of Christmas parties and birthday parties. And,
Okay.
we've gotten to know quite a lot of people in the village with having our business.
Okay.
And then come to find out over this time while we're here is, I was not raised in this area. I was actually born in Racine, where the Danish side of my roots are, but the German side of my roots are all here in this area.
Oh, really?
Is in Cleveland and Mosel in this area. I'm a descendant of the Wagners that settled in this area.
Okay.
And I kind of knew a little bit before we came to this town, but I had never ever been to Cleveland before. But I knew this was the general area that the German side of my family had settled in. So I kind of took out the genealogy book and started thumbing through it and found lots of pictures of the village of Cleveland. And then when we opened up, we had all the customers that came in, and I had the bar out the book out on the bar, and had people looking and come to find out half the town's in the book. I said, well, this is a small world. I mean, I grew up in the Milwaukee area, and having never been up in this area, to find out that this is actually where my great-great-grandma is the one who settled here.
Really? Okay.
She was the youngest of the children from the Wagner family that came over from Germany. She was only 4 months old at the time. And this is where they settled. And then, of course, the family expanded, and, you got all the big family names from around Cleveland that are in the book. So a lot of family names that go way back.
Okay.
But that's very interesting. I found that very fascinating. And my grandmother, whose side of the family this is on, is still living. She's 92 years old, and she lives in Racine. And she's come up several times to visit, and she just thinks it's fantastic that we're here, because she remembers being in Cleveland when she was a kid with her grandma, who would have been my great-great-grandma.
When did, if I may interrupt for a moment.
Sure.
When did she leave the village here to go to Racine?
My grandma never ever lived here.
Oh,
in
she never
Racine,
did.
Because
Oh,
it was
okay.
her grandma who lived here.
Okay.
And but her grandma lived mostly between Cleveland, Mosel, and spent some time in Sheboygan. And I believe she also passed in Sheboygan.
Mhm.
But it was, my grandma never lived here. She
Oh.
actually was born in Racine
Okay.
and married my grandpa, who was Danish.
Okay.
So that's where you got the Danish side of the
Danish.
family from.
Okay.
But yeah, she would just come visit grandma because I'm not sure the whole transition there. But it would have been her grandma, so her mother, I have not done the research to see if my grandma's mother was actually born in Racine or was born up here. I think her mother was born up in this area.
Okay.
And then somehow got moved down to Racine. I'm not real sure about that whole connection.
Good.
So,
Very
but
good.
it's a lot of family history. And then I come to find out from the help of you people that the Hickory House was originally the Wagner Inn. So we believe that was because I am a descendant of the Wagner, then that would have been my family.
Could you hold that picture
Sure.
steady for me and tip it down slightly? Okay. Okay. That was called a Wagner Inn.
Yep, it was the
And-
Wagner Inn back in the 1800s.
Okay. Okay, good.
And I believe, somebody could correct me, but I believe somebody told me that this was the original building. There wasn't anything prior to this. When it was built as a Wagner Inn. And then it became many things after that.
Okay,
I believe that's what I was informed.
all right.
I also have other pictures from what the Hickory House looked like before we tore it down.
Okay.
Put it down.
Half of it, before half of it down, but then we also had to redo the whole outside to match it all up together. So it looks totally different from when, what it looked like in 2001 before the fire.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to switch over to your husband and give you a little rest there. Good
Okay.
job, though, by the way. Very good. You, sir, if you'd like to identify yourself and where your roots are at this point, and maybe, do you have any carpenter skills?
My name is Brian Kalashevsky, and I live at 1024 Hickory Street, at the Hickory House above. And I don't have did some carpentry through college and some HVAC, and I went to school for mechanical engineering. And so when we saw the handyman special in the newspaper, we decided to take a look at it. Yeah, you needed to be handy, all right. That's for sure. And so that I was kind of tired of my job, and we decided to strike out on our own and see what we could do.
Okay.
So,
As far as, like, your wife mentioned the gutting of things out, are you capable of also doing electrical and plumbing and the whole thing?
yeah, the basic electrical and plumbing, yes. We have one of our neighbors is an electrician, so I will have him over from time to time to
Pick his
ask a
brain.
few technical questions, and he's
Okay.
more than willing to do that. And
Okay.
there's always a plumber or two that stops in the bar when you need a question. There's one good thing about owning a bar. There's all kinds of people that come in, and if you need information, I can always get it.
We did hire out a plumber though originally to redo, or electrician, I
An
mean,
electrician,
to redo all the
redo
electrical
all
in
the
that whole
wiring.
building because
Okay.
that was the main problem with the fires was the electrical.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Very
It was
good.
old, it all need to be replaced, so we did hire out to do that.
Okay, just technical, if you want to call it a technical question, the dimensions of your building as far as length, width, height, and whatever is there?
It's 50 feet long. The main building is 50 feet long, and it's 35 feet wide.
Wow.
The height, I think at the corners and where the ceiling starts would be 16 feet. And then up to the peak was another 6 feet or so probably 22 feet
Okay.
off the foundation, which comes out of the ground about 3 feet on one side. And then the back kitchen is another part of the building that was added on by a couple owners before us, is probably another 15 feet wide by 20 feet long.
Wow.
Flat roof on it.
As far as when you were taking and gutting this building, was there a log construction or any thing like that in there?
It was balloon construction, square nails yet, all over the place.
Really?
And balloon construction, I don't know if people here are familiar with balloon construction, but instead of building a floor and then putting walls up and putting a floor on and building walls on top of that, what they would do is they would build the wall and notch all the 2x4s. All the 2x4s went straight up to the top of the wall, and then they would notch the 2x4s and place another board inside and set the floorboards on top of that. And
So in other words, you're saying there was about a 16-foot high,
so, yes, along the
yeah.
short walls and along the
oh,
gable ends, they were, 25, 26 feet
really?
tall.
Okay, okay. Very good.
And they had the blowed-in insulation, the old newspaper.
Old newspapers
Oh,
along
really?
the walls. When we
That
tore
was the
down
insulation.
the dining room, we had newspapers stapled in the walls from 1934, I believe.
Oh, my.
Yes, it was 22 cents a gallon, I think.
Okay, very
I believe.
good.
That was a chore to take that out because you couldn't just take down that side of the building because all that newspaper would have blown all over down the neighborhood. So he had to cut on top of the wood, slot open and then down at the bottom,
Down at
and then
the
we had to
bottom.
sit there and push it all down and shovel it into garbage bags. So that was
Oh.
quite a chore.
And there had been quite a few different windows put in and taken out over the last 100 years. So not all of it came out when it was supposed to, because there was a header in there or something from somebody putting in a window and then taking it out and going over the top.
Mhm.
And one point of interest is my father, while he was sweeping up some of the garbage along the street, found a 1899 penny in mint condition. Unfortunately, he had pushed it with a broom about 6 feet before he finally bent over and picked it up, so one side wasn't in mint condition anymore. One side was a little bit scratched up.
Okay. Okay, let me think. I'll let it open. The gentleman who raised his hand, he might have some information to offer. Go right ahead, please.
John Wiegand. I was just wondering, you mentioned the Wagner relationship there. There are a lot of Wagner families in this area. Do you know the first name of the one who built the Hickory House?
No, that's what I don't know. That's why I said I believe.
Dominic.
Okay, there was a question on the floor pertaining to the original owner or builder of this building, and maybe this gentleman can help us out.
Melvin Yiddish.
Thank you, Melvin.
And the name was Dominic Wagner, who built it up. And he came from, I guess, the old one for the one north of the Jaegers.
What name was that again? What Jaeger?
Well, that's where the Jaegers live now.
Oh, okay, I see.
And it was, I guess, the Joe Scheid farm is where he originated.
Okay, very good, thank you. We got a lady who had raised her hand, and she may have a question or some answers. Go right ahead, please.
Well, I just know, I'm Audrey Ertl,
Thank
and
you.
I just know that Ed Wagner was Dominic Wagner's son. And he had a lumber company just south of the tavern.
Okay,
Coalyard.
let's say that again.
Coalyard he had too.
Coal yard, okay. And this was near the railroad tracks, is that right?
Right across the road.
Across the road. Okay, thank you. Okay, we got a young lady who raised her hand, and she may have some information or a question. Go right ahead, please.
I have no question right now, but I have information from the beginning of when this started, from the time the U.S. sold it to a John Egloff in 1847. There was 160 acres. That was the whole section on the northeast corner of Cleveland would be. Well, then it went down the line and it was divided in by 80 acres and 37 acres. And then the railroad in 1876 got 68 feet in between that thing.
Okay.
And it said here 10 acres in chain links. I don't know what that means, what they did to a property in chain links, so I don't know what that was. But then this was lot 1, block 1. That was the section where that building stands on. And that went from different people owning it and to an Otto Gockel who bought it in 1890. And in 1895 he died, and it went to his daughter, and his 5 daughters and his wife. And they had a guardianship that took their section, or their part that they inherited, and he sold it to Dominic Wagner. That would have been in 1900.
What are the dates again, please, on that?
1900.
Okay,
Well, then, then Rosa Gockel sold her part to Dominic Wagner. So he had this section, half of Lot 1, Block 2, whichever, on the map, which I don't know where that is. And from there on, it went down to a few more people dividing up from that block, and it came down to Dominic Wagner's estate when he died. Let me see, when did he die? 1938. Then his executor of the will got it down to Edwin and Lillian. That would have been Edwin, and Lillian is a sister. Edwin and Lillian are brother and sister. And in 1942, well, then that kept going some more, and people changed, and then Edwin and Matilda, to be his wife, sold this part to Tom Gretz in 2/5 of 1960, and that's when Tom built a new post office, and the post office moved out. And then he sold it, the rest of the building, to Ray and Rosemary Bushman in 1962.
okay.
And after that, Matt Kleckner, Henry Schwinn, Joe Scheidt, Roger Yerk, all those people were in that bar.
That bar, okay.
That's all I got.
A lot of stuff. Thank you. Okay, I got a young lady who has given us a list of owners and property boundaries and things of that nature, and she'd like to indicate what document she was using.
I'm Irene Dine, and when I owned the new post office, I got this warranty deed from Dominic Wagner,
Okay,
and that was from the beginning of this property,
all right.
and that's,
Okay, and at this point in time, there is some questions pertaining to property owners, so we'll see what we can do with it.
maybe they didn't own it then, maybe they just rented.
Did-
It was all Dominic Wagner's,
Oh.
maybe.
Okay, okay, that's a good, yeah, that might be possible, yes. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Got a young lady who has some information and maybe different from what we heard, but there's a problem, or not a problem, a condition of rentals and so forth. Go right ahead, please.
I'm Kathy Wagner, and I don't have a document at all.
Okay,
I was talking to Rosie Bushman, because I was trying to get dates when these people were in and out of there,
yes,
and she gave me this list.
okay,
She said after Reiser, there was Matt Kleckner, then Joe and Carol Scheidt, then Henry and Laverne Schwinn, then Ray and Rosie Bushman. Now I'm up to 1960 already.
okay.
And then it was David and Doris Down, and then it was Roger Yerk.
Roger Yerk. Okay, and that is where that property names ended until the owners who are here this evening took over?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a picture of the David and Doris, and I have a picture of
Good, I'd like to see those.
Dominic Wagner's son, who owned it too,
Okay, can we bring those pictures up, please?
right here.
Thank you. If you just hold them for a moment, I'll take a look.
This is Mildred and Alfred Wagner.
You just hold it for a moment there, please. And what years did Mildred and Alfred own that?
I don't know,
Okay,
and they're both deceased, so I
they're both
couldn't ask.
deceased, so okay. The next picture you have there, please?
And the other picture that I have is Doris and David Down.
Okay, if you can just hold that for a moment, I appreciate it. Again, what years did they own it? Or what?
I don't know when they owned it, but they were there after Ray and Rosie Bushman.
Okay,
And the Bushmans left in 1972.
okay, thank you. The gentleman raised his hand and he'd like to identify himself and he'd like to add some names in between what we've heard thus far. Go right ahead, please.
Brian Kalashevsky from Cleveland, and it was actually Roger Yerk owned the bar, and then he had sold it on a land contract to Jack and Denise Dampier. And after about 2 years, he got it back, and then he sold it again to Jim and Faye Budish, who we bought the bar from.
Okay,
They had it for
They
approximately
had
3 years.
2 or 3 years,
okay.
Jack and Denise, I believe, had it for 1 year,
1 year.
and then it went back 2 years,
Okay.
and then
Okay, could we have, I want to go over that one more time. There was this owner that you're talking about, and you can please give his name one more time, and go over that one more time also, who he contracted that out to.
Roger Yerk was the owner at the time, and he sold the bar on a land contract to Jack and Denise Dampier.
Okay,
And then they had it for a short time, I don't know how long, and he ended up getting the bar back, because they defaulted on the land contract.
I see.
And then he sold it again to Jim and Faye Budish, and they had it for 3 years, and then we bought it. And then they owned it when there was a fire, they had a fire, and then we bought it from Jim and Faye after the fire.
Okay. Now, with the land contract, just to clear my mind, they actually owned it when they had a land contract, is that correct? So that when they had the fire, they sold it to you?
no, Jim and Faye didn't have a land contract.
Okay.
Jim and Faye had bought it outright from Roger Yerk.
Oh, okay.
The couple, Jack and
After-
Denise, that were in there for a year approximately, they had it on a land contract.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for clearing that one up. Thank you. Yes, Victor?
I remember it being Art Reiser on rainy days, the farmers used to come in and have spittoon contests. I remember Arnold Six would come in there and he could spit from here to that wall over there in that spittoon, and bing, it hit every time it hit the dead center. I'll never forget that.
He missed his calling, huh?
Oh, he could hit that spittoon, he'd shoot at tobacco and he'd shoot in that brass kettle, and it was something. It was great to see that as a little kid.
How old were you at the time, and what year was
I
it?
must have been about 7 or 8, but
So that would make you, what year about was that at?
Oh, I'd say in 1946 or 47.
Okay, all
They
right.
used to come in there. I lived across the street, and when it was raining, those kids would go over and just watch these guys in these contests spit. It was just something. It was great to see them hit that kettle, and that Mrs. Reiser would go in there and have to clean the floor up, mop the floor.
Gosh.
It was just exciting. We got a lot of candy to eat, but it was good.
Thank you so much. Okay, we got a gentleman that raised his hand. Go right ahead, please.
Paul Jacoby.
Thank you, Paul.
I know part of the Wagner Yard building, there's one building still standing there. That belong to you or not? No?
No,
You ever see any activity there?
No, there's a gentleman that owns like
Vogel had it then.
2 lots there.
There was a question from the floor pertaining to an additional building perhaps, and maybe this lady can identify herself and straighten this one out. Go ahead, Ed.
Yes, I'm Christine Kaliszewski. The property that you're speaking about is a property that is south of our building, which was the Wagner Lumber Yard years ago. It is now divided in between like 3 parcels, where the gentleman that owns the property with the building that's still on there owns from between Hickory Street to, what's the street behind us the post office is on?
Juniper?
Hemlock, thank you.
Hemlock, yeah.
Between Hickory Street and Hemlock, he owns that lot, which the building is on. Then he also owns what would be the
Southeast corner.
southeast corner, and then there is a real estate woman that owns that other corner that would be on the east corner, the southwest corner. But as far as like any activity on that property, no, he's just sitting on it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Got a gentleman here who has a question. He'd like to identify himself, please.
Yes, Charlie Bauer. The photograph that we got mailed out to us on the postcard, this building was built as a hotel first, and then it had like a bar in it and a hotel at the same time, and the post office? And this building faces the railroad track, so I'm assuming that the mail came off the...
No.
It's not right? Okay. That's my question.
Good. Good job, Charlie.
I wanted to know if the mail came off the train and then over to the hotel here where the post office is in, and what was the original intent of the building? A hotel, bar, or whatever?
Thank you. Got a gentleman here who was shaking his head. That's not right, that type of thing, but he'll straighten us out. Go ahead, Ed, please.
I wondered, Matthias,
Thank you.
before the post office was over here,
Okay.
it was on the east side of the building.
Irene, could you hold that photo while he's talking?
It was,
Turn it around, thank you. I'll lead in here.
it was on the other side of the railroad tracks is where the post office was.
Oh, wait, okay, wait a minute.
This way.
There was no post office in that building then?
Not then,
Not then?
no.
What year are we talking?
I would say, maybe 48, 47, then it was maybe moved over in that area, because I know, I just asked Alice, when she went to the mail, where did she go to the mail? And she says she went into that building. But see, the Bergners had the house across the railroad tracks,
Okay.
and that's where the post office was at one time,
Okay,
as I was a little boy. And later on, it was moved over here because the Bergners, Eddie got married and they needed the room, and they made
Okay.
that into his living quarters.
all right,
So they moved that post office over here then, to this building.
okay,
But it didn't look like this then. But at that time, it was still owned by Dominic Wagner.
Dominic Wagner,
And
okay.
later on, when Ed retired, then Dominic retired, then Ed was the owner of the lumber yard and the tavern. And they did, Ed and his wife did run the tavern for a short time, but they couldn't handle all
All right,
the work that was involved in it.
okay, I just got a little question pertaining to Dominic Wagner.
Yeah.
You say he owned it. Did he live there too?
No, not as long as I remember, he never lived there.
He never lived there?
No, he lived, pardon me, right across where the cheese factory's being built.
Oh.
That first big house is where Dominic Wagner lived.
Okay, okay,
And there was, he built it, and I think, I think it was just for him and his family that time, that big
Okay.
house.
all right.
But
Is that on, pardon me again, is that on Hickory Street?
Is that right? Okay, on
Okay.
Hickory Street, yeah.
Okay, very good.
And
Yes, sir.
he built that house, and that's where where they grew up,
All right,
at the Wagners.
okay, thank
And
you.
then, there was another Al Wagner, that was his son. He was in the mink business. He had a mink farm up on that same street in the back there where there used to be the sawmill and things like that. He had his mink farm there, and he lived in that house that is still back there. And then later on, he moved his mink to in back of the tavern
Okay,
where the post office is now. He used to have mink and fox over there. That was Al
okay,
Wagner. And Ed, he run the lumber company.
Ed ran the lumber company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good, very good, thank you very much. Well done. We have a young lady here who raised her hand. She'd like to either, I think, provide some information. Go right ahead.
I'm Alice Mathias. I just have a question. I'm wondering when Willie thought the post office moved in, like around 47, 48? Is that right? And then at that time, the tavern was still there, right?
Right.
And that was just part of I know it was just a little place, right? I remember
Okay.
going to pick up mail there, but I was just wondering,
All right,
basically,
About the size of your side room, not even.
yeah. And then it moved out, what year did you say, Irene?
Well, 1960, Tom had bought that property.
Tom who?
Tom Gretz. He
Okay,
bought the property behind that building to the west. And that's where
okay,
he built the new post office.
okay. Was there a different street on the,
What, the other street
On
would
the
have
west
been
Hemlock then.
Hemlock.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, I got a gentleman here who raised his hand. He's apparently ready to give us some information. Go right ahead, please.
Melvin Yeh, and I think the post office was in that building. I'm about 35. Because I never remember it being on the east side, but I know they told me about it because that was my uncle on the east side. Burger.
So the other timeline was for the post office was in the 40s? And you're saying it got in there at what time?
It was in there by 39 at least already.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Wait,
Yes, sir, Paul.
I have a question for Willard. When did the village merge? Because I can remember Eddie Henson's grocery store at the post office for Hika.
Okay,
What year was the merge? The whole became Cleveland and all Cleveland.
I have a question on the floor, and this young lady said she can take care of that. Go right ahead.
We became a village of Cleveland in 1958.
1958.
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I'm Naomi Schmidt, and when you were talking about the post office, the year, I would say it had been there already in the early 40s, because I can remember my mother always ordering baby chicks, and they came partial post. And the minute they came, they called us up to get them because they were noisy in the post office, and we had to pick them up. And this was in the
Okay.
early 40s.
Early 40s?
Well, yeah, middle 40s, something like that.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, we got a young lady here who was identify herself, and she's raised her hand. Go right ahead, please.
I'm Marie Pippert. I remember they had a sawmill there too. It wasn't the sawmill right over the creek? Yeah, I remember going in there, and I remember going to old Dominic's wake. And that time they lived right across from what was that little Reformed church where Sidney Reck lives. That's where the wake. That's where they lived then, Dominic, when he died. I remember going in there then.
Okay,
That was a long time ago.
long time ago. Thank you. The gentleman identify himself. Go right ahead, please.
Frederick Jacoby. The topic, I think, was covered extensively a year or two ago, and I think it's on record. I think it was, I don't know how you'll find it, but it was covered at one of these meetings, and I don't think there was much argument about the way the timetable was set up then. And I can't tell you how long. Does anyone else recall? It was recorded
Okay.
and dealt with here.
Hmm.
Well, that was right, except that it could have been then, but I thought it was even before that, but
Okay, thank you. Very good, thank you. Okay, we're looking at some pictures of the Hickory House. I don't know if it was that name at that time that we're looking at these pictures, but we'd like to have this young lady talk about what we're looking at. Right ahead, please.
Yes, Christine Kalashewski.
Thank you.
And these are pictures of the Hickory House. It was named the Hickory House. The people who we purchased this building from, Fay and Jim Budish, they were the ones that named it the Hickory House.
Okay.
Before that, it was not the Hickory House.
All right.
But this is what it looked like, the building looked like prior to the fire,
Okay.
when Jim and Fay Budish owned it.
All right. Looked like a very distinctive building, and
Yes, the German look. to
German
it.
look. Yes, very good. By the way, German-wise, do you know where your roots came from and where this building, like what it used for the German design?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking me, but if you mean as far as my roots with the town and the building?
Yes, we can try that. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the German side of my family. This
Yes.
is the area that they had settled in, was Cleveland, Mosel. It would have been my great-great-grandma who came over from Germany.
Okay.
This building was the Wagner Inn. I am a descendant of the Wagners. I am not quite sure if it actually was in the Wagners, because I do understand there's a couple families in town, different Wagner families. But I do believe that the buildings all that are around the Wagner, if it was the same Wagners as the lumberyard, I was under the impression that that was definitely my family, and the Baylitz hardware store.
Oh, really?
Which was across the street, kitty corner from the Hickory House, because my great-great-grandma ended up living with Baylitz to raise his children when his wife passed. So,
Okay.
anyways, we'll go back to the pictures.
Okay, the date, could you give us the date of this picture too, please? It's on
Which
the...
ones you got? Oh, what did you do no, I would go to the fire one. Here.
Okay, these
Oh,
are the
okay.
remodel...
This is the fire, here. You
Oh.
can kind of see up on that side there. I mean,
Here,
the whole,
Oh.
Burned out.
Yeah.
Smoke out of these sides.
The whole top was, I mean, completely,
Wow.
there was no saving it. I mean, when they were in there tearing it out, it was like he came out of a coal mine, just black
Really?
with soot, because it was completely burned. They did a fantastic job, the Village of Cleveland, as far as the volunteer fire department, for
Mhm.
saving that building. Because
Okay.
the bar room itself and the kitchen were not damaged whatsoever.
Wow.
And that's, I think, the only reason why the building was salvageable. Had the bar or the kitchen and all that equipment been
Yep,
damaged, it
yep.
wouldn't have been worth rebuilding.
I see.
But they did a fantastic job maintaining that fire.
So these pictures right here would have been somewhere around 2001, summer 2001.
Okay.
Fire
If it's green,
2000.
I'm guessing, or else it's the winter of 2000,
Sure.
fall of 2001, winter 2002,
Oh, yeah.
early.
Yeah,
Okay.
that we had taken, right.
All right.
And then we have a couple more after.
These are the pictures now that, with us rebuilding it.
Wow.
We're redoing the outside.
Okay.
This is what it currently looks like now.
Okay. All right, and that's, you took that picture in December of
December 2006.
2006. Okay. Wow. Nice job. And as far as the any specialties of your facility, such as special kind of foods that you've got, or
Oh, we do a lot of roasted chicken. This area loves roasted chicken, we found
Okay.
out. So we do a lot of roasted chicken.
Okay.
We do a lot of barbecued ribs is another
Okay.
big one. Our prime rib is a big seller.
Okay.
And then we do other specials. Our Friday fish fry is huge.
Good.
We
Good.
brought our own fish, so we draw a big crowd for our Friday fish fry.
All right. Okay.
But,
Now, as far as, like I said, there's no dancing or anything in the facility.
No, we've had bands in there for special occasions.
Okay, all
But
right.
we don't have a regular dance.
Okay.
If you want to show it, the inside the dining
These
room
are
now looks
Yeah,
like.
you
inside
got some
dining
there?
room pictures are a
Fine.
little dark, so I don't know
No problem, I
how
can-
well you're going to be able to
Oh, that's good. That's good.
get.
Wow. Oh, man. Neat.
So
Very nice.
And there is some history behind the dining room also.
Okay, let's have it.
The walls that you see on here are old barn boards that came from
Wimler's Barn.
Wimbler's Barn, Old
Wimbler's.
Paulie's Palace.
Really?
And
Oh.
Donnie Dine had them up at his father's barn. And he asked us if we could use these for anything. And he didn't think we really could because they were pretty weathered boards. And
Okay.
Brian looked at us, oh, we can use them, I
We'll do
think.
something with them, yeah.
We actually had a gentleman sandblast them
Aye.
and stain them, and they're just gorgeous. I mean, I would have never thought looking at those old weathered barn boards that they would come out looking like that.
The brown or whatever, the tan, whatever the board is, that's just a natural clear coat varnish on them.
Really?
So
Wow.
That's
there's no extra stain on them.
You saw a diamond in the rough there, huh?
It turned out beautifully. And then the floor, actually, it's a hardwood floor.
Okay.
Is the old gymnasium from the YMCA in Sheboygan. That
Really?
another gentleman in town here had that was given to when they were tearing up the floor. And he's like, well, can you use this? And his father actually, Brian's from Stevens Point originally. So
Okay.
his father hauled up all those floorboards because it had all the basketball lines
markings
on
on
it
it.
and the thick varnish. And
Yeah,
he
yeah.
took them up to Stevens Point and
Planed them all down.
planed them all
Oh,
down.
really?
And that's what our floor is, so.
Wow. Wow. Now, as far as sponsoring other activities like bowling, as far as teams from
Oh,
your
we
facility?
have bowling, volleyball, softball, kickball. I think that
That's
might
pretty
be
much it.
pretty much, yeah.
Wonderful.
We do
Always
quite
willing
a
to
few.
sponsor a team, though.
Okay, all right, very good. It's sort of a all year round type way it looks as far
Oh,
as
yes.
different
Oh, yes.
seasonal type things.
Yes,
Well,
definitely.
at this time, we'll give everybody a little time to catch their, oh, we got something, just one moment. Gentleman here who has a booklet in front of him, he'd like to give us some information. Go right ahead, please.
I'm Frederick Jacoby, and this is the Centerville history book that several people have. And I was asked to read this because it sort of summarizes about the post office thing.
Okay.
And gives some dates that I don't think have come up this evening yet.
A little volume there, sir.
Okay. The first post office in Centerville was established in 1855. Later post offices were established at St. Wendel and Cleveland. The post office for Centerville was given the name Hika, since there already was a post office in the state named Centerville. The Hika post office closed in 1954, the St. Wendel post office sometime before 1915.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Fred. We got a lady who raised her hand, and she'd like to tell us a little bit of something that she'd like to convey. Go right ahead.
This is Alice Matthias. I remember when Chites had the bar. I don't remember too much about the food part, but they always had that back bar that had the dogs playing cards in the background.
Really?
I think their whole, was it the back of the bar or the other side, where they had all these dogs? Remember seeing that in calendars already?
Yeah.
Where they're playing like poker?
They called it the Canine Club.
That's right, they called it the
Canine
Canine
Club.
Club. There you
Really?
go.
And
It was
they were playing cards? Was it an animation
yeah,
type?
no, it was just the back.
Just the back
What
part?
was it, the back bar or the back wall?
Okay.
Yeah, and that was all that, those big dogs, don't you remember seeing those already? Playing cards,
Okay. Well, very good. Good thoughts.
that
Thank
was
you.
always cute.
Thank you. Okay, we were talking about the Canine Club, but there was a unique initials involved here. Go right ahead, please.
It was K-9,
Okay.
not C-A-N-I-N-E.
All right.
That was too plain.
Okay, very good. Anything else you got there?
Well, I have Mildred and Al, their children and all that kind of good stuff.
Okay,
Do you want that?
sure.
Okay. They had 3 children. They all attended Central High School in Sheboygan. Eugene was a retired dentist, was a graduate of Marquette University. He had a wife, Beverly, also from Sheboygan, and children Stephen, Tom, John, and Justin, and Michael. Richard was their second son. He was a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and recently retired from Merrill Lynch. He was a graduate of Syracuse University and the University of Southern California. He had a wife called Adelia, children Marcia, Richard, Deborah, Barbara, and Jacqueline. And their third child was a girl, Suzanne, a retired hygienist, graduate of Marquette University. And she has a husband, Robert, children, Laura and John.
Okay, thank you. And whose children were these again, please?
These were Mildred and Al. Who are these people, which I already
Okay,
gave you.
that's the one could you show me that picture one more time? I just want to get that picture on again.
Okay, that's
Thank you. And their full name again was what?
Mildred and Al Wagner,
Okay, thank you. This is the stone, and it's what?
up at the cemetery, St.
what's-
Wendel Cemetery.
St. Wendel Cemetery?
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, we got a young lady who's anxious to get talking here, so go right ahead, please.
It says Al and Mildred operated the Wagner Tavern for many years in Cleveland. They later went into the mink business. When World War II came along, they both went to work at Kohler. Mildred made shells and Al made torpedoes. In 1951, they moved to San Antonio, Texas, where they entered U.S. Civil Service at Kelly Air Force Base, and then later transferred to Norton Air Force Base in San Bernardino, California. In 1969, General B.H. King of the U.S. Air Force honored Mildred for her outstanding service to the Air Force in the Accident Preventive Program and named her to the U.S. Air Force Flight Safety Hall of Fame, the first woman ever to receive that honor.
Oh. Very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, the videographer had a question on the floor in regard to if there was taverns that provided any unusual entertainment such as bingo, bunco, or anything like that. And we have some information from these people. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, hi, Christine Kalashevsky.
Thank you.
Since we've been owners of the Hickory House and in town, we've heard lots of stories over the years from our patrons from when they used to come into our establishment years ago. And from what I understand was a lot of farmers came in the morning. There was a lot of morning business.
Oh, really?
They'd come in, the co-op was down the street from them, so that was always their big stop.
Okay.
So I heard that from quite a few people, actually.
Okay, very good. That's unusual for a tavern to have that kind of livelihood in the morning like that.
Yeah, you don't see that very often anymore. That's
Okay.
We're not open in the mornings.
You're not open in the morning.
We'd be the only ones sitting there.
Okay, and as far as just a question from the videographer, as far as other activities in your facility, as far as do you have liar's dice tournaments or chess tournaments or cribbage or anything like that?
Well, we haven't had any, but we've had some sheep's head tournaments.
We
in
had
our
the
place.
state sheep's head tournament was held
Oh,
last spring,
Yes.
oh, really?
a couple of months.
Was that, no, this tournament, was it the large state thing, or is it just a county thing, or what?
It was state, and it's held in various spots, and you add up points for each session. And then if you rank in the top about 240 points for a session, then you get money back for that.
Oh, okay,
So
very good.
But I know there's also a lot of local sheep's head tournaments around the area too.
Sure, sure. Okay, very good. I guess you had some book that you apparently have there that
Oh,
has some
this is-
information. If you have a moment, that you could tell us about that.
This is the Wagner family in America. And it's to celebrate the Wagners being here for 150 years.
Wow.
There's a lot of research into this book, and this is one of the things where I found most of my information from, besides the help from people here. A couple of things that I guess I want to interject is with the history with my family and being in Cleveland, Mosel area, is my great-great-grandma, who I mentioned earlier. I guess it would have been back around 1860s, 70s. My great-great-grandpa had lost his leg in the Battle of Gettysburg, and they moved back to Mosel area, and they became owners of a roadside hostelry tavern, and it says between Sheboygan and Manitowoc, just 1 mile east of the Wagner homestead. And my understanding with asking several people where this would it be, it is now a house next to the cemetery on Dairyland Drive in Mosel. I don't know, Edith, if you know where I'm talking about. But they had originally built that as a tavern and a roadside, and then I don't think that, it doesn't say in my book how long they had it. I don't think they were there that long because he ended up passing from complications from losing his leg. And then that's when my great-great-grandma ended up going and staying with Bailitz's, who was her nephew at the time, because his wife had
What
passed.
Bailiffs was this?
You know, I want to say Ed, but that's just coming to my mind. I'm not quite sure. But I would like more information on if anybody knows what that tavern would be on in Mosel, which would be on Dairyland Drive. Like I said, I believe it's the one which is the big house next to the cemetery.
Okay, you can identify yourself, please?
I'm Marie Pippert.
Yes.
They were talking about the dance hall. It was right next to the cemetery in town. It was called Hitzler's Place. I remember that.
Okay.
And now it's a beautiful home. I would like to go in there once. I remember dancing in that hall.
Okay. And that's in Mosel, and
Yeah,
what
it's
road
right
is that
next
on?
right next to the cemetery on Dairyland Drive.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
But
And
it's a house now, big house now.
Edith, did you have something on that too?
Well, I know, I'm sure that Elmer Bourne's wedding dance was there. There was a lot of weddings there.
Oh, sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Husky.
Thank you.
And that pretty much really is it as far as, I mean, there's a lot of information in this book, obviously, and there's a lot of family names I know that recognize in here that people may not realize who are in this book, but it's the Lutzes and the Klessigs and the Leiteritzes, and I mean, a lot of big family names around this
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
So if anybody would like to look at this book anytime, you're more than welcome, because there is a lot of information. So, and you may just happen to find yourself in here and not know you were. But
Okay.
that's pretty much all I have.
All right. Okay, thank you very much.
Alice Matthias?
Thank you,
I
Alice.
was- In comparison to that Lillian, whatever her name was, Lily Wagner? No, this one, Alfred's wife. Mildred. And that would be Ed Wagner's sister, and Ed is the one that had the coal yards and whatever. But anyhow, their family only consisted of 3 children, and that was so different from this family where they all went off to college and this and that. Eric, I probably went to college. He was the oldest one, and then about 10, 12 years later, they had a set of twin boys.
Oh, really?
And she was like about 52 years old, if I remember, like 50 years old when she had them.
Wow.
Yeah, and now those boys are like 52.
All right.
So, but that's all that, I thought it was such a comparison to what
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Mildred did and what
yeah.
Ed did.
Very
That
good.
was not his sister, that was.
Okay. If you'd like to identify yourself, please.
I'm Audrey Ertl. I worked at the co-op from 69 to 92, and I remember Bushmans were in there and Davy Down was in there, but the guys at the co-op would go over there a lot at noon and eat their lunch. I went once in a while, but I didn't go too often.
Okay.
But the thing I remembered was when Bushmans and Davy Downs had it, you could drive by there and look at the windows, and they were sparkling, and the yard in front was always very neat. And if you were in the tavern looking out, I know it's hard to keep a tavern windows clean because of the smoking, but when Bushmans and Davy Downs were in there, those windows always sparkled.
Ah.
Now, I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but that was a thing that I always thought was really something, that they always had such clean windows.
Ah, I know what you mean. That's a tough one to keep going. Thank you.
But I know the guys would call in and tell them that they were coming and what kind of soup they would have, like chili and sandwiches, or, you know, a steak sandwich or a hamburger or something. But there was a whole row of them would leave at 12 o'clock, and they'd call ahead so that, because they only had a half-hour lunch.
Yeah, so everything was prepared almost.
So
huh?
everything would be ready for them when they got there.
Huh, thank you. I lost you. Would you indicate your name one more time?
Paul Jacoby.
That's Paul. And
And
would you
when-
give us that information? That was very good.
And when Bushmans ran the bar, and they were in there quite a few years, Rosie on Easter Sunday morning colored eggs, about 2 or 3 dozen, and there'd be one raw one. And whoever got that one had to buy the bar a drink.
Ah, very good. Thank you.
And I'm just going to show you some of the photographs that we took and maybe explain just a little bit. This bulk tank in here is what they call the receiving room. And the truck actually drives in the building, and then there's a small opening where he puts his hose in to fill that tank. And then from there, if they use this is their pasteurizer in there, and it's a locked machine. Once that milk starts going through that process, the temperature and everything is kept in that machine, so the state can come in and inspect it at any time. That the owner can't tamper with the device itself, which is quite unique, I thought. And this is the only cheese making vat in the building. And the gentleman down on the bottom there, he's hooking the hose from the bulk tank to here. And they're going to push the milk in there. And there the milk is coming in. There's 3 sets of paddles on there. The tank was designed by the cheese maker. It's heated from the bottom. And the paddles can come off when they have to take and make the cheese out of there. Yeah, this one here. This is actually, they got Jerry's there. He's videotaped. The gentleman there is Neville. He's from New Zealand, and he is the cheese maker. And the milk has been in here for, I forget the length of time, but it's quite a while, and it's got to be kept at a certain temperature. And this is Rampart. He was at one of our meetings here. He was also the guy that was in charge of building the building, making sure it was all put together. He's got his little vial of bacteria, right?
Rennet? Or?
Rennet? No. Yeah, rennet, I think it is, yeah. And here you can see some of the curd. It's very yellow. The day we were there taping, they did not run the milk through the pasteurizer. They used whole milk. And I thought that was rather unique. And the building here where the vat is in, they call that the make room. And we notice here, you can see them little yellow dots on here, right? Like here. That's actually butter floating on the top of that tank. Because they use whole milk, they didn't take any cream out of it, and they didn't run it through the pasteurizer. That make room there where the cheese vat is in, what they have in the ceiling, the bright lights are just the fluorescent lights, but that big sock there pushes air into the building. So that room is pressurized. Anytime a door opens, when you enter the make room, the air will come out. And that will keep the bacteria and flies or anything else from coming in the building. That was rather unique design on that. And here we got the whole crew. Is that very clear? And this guy here, his name is Raphael. He's from Italy. This, of course, is Jerry Heimel. This is Jerry O'Neill. This is Rambert. And then this is the guy from New Zealand back in here.
Wasn't there two cheesemakers? Wasn't the other one a cheesemaker too?
Rambert is a cheesemaker, but he went back to Italy. He spent
Not Rambert.
Not Rambert, the other one. Yeah.
Raphael.
Raphael. He spent 2.5 years in India building cheese factories to make buffalo milk into cheese. Very interesting gentleman to talk to. They use plastic hoops here. And this is, now that we're taking the cheese out from the night before. That's the press rack right here. And this is the cart where they're going to put the cheese wheels on. And then from the make room, they go into the aging room.
Or did we miss a salt brine thing, or are we not?
That's the next one.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Charlie, thank you.
The day we were there, they made cheese 3 times that week. And they were making about 39 wheels, and that was it for the day. They're starting off small, and they're still at what they call R&D. They're still developing their cheese flavor, that what they want, and the size of the wheel and all that.
What do they call their cheese?
One is called Big Ed, and they had another name, and if Jerry can remember it, I can't remember it. But if you notice this, they have 2 of these salt brine tanks in there, and the boards in the back are being soaked in this salt, and remember what they put on the racks here. But you see the little green dots on here. Each wheel gets a protein-based number put on it, so they can track that wheel of cheese no matter where it goes. And I thought that was very interesting, that each wheel has its own little number on the thing. And once they get out of the salt vat, they stay in the salt vat, I think he said for about 2 days. The cheese is turned every 12 hours. And then they go into the aging room. And once they get in the aging room, they were just making whole milk cheese. They have to stay in there at least 60 days. The cheese is turned every 12 hours in there, and it's wiped down with a salt solution. And the day we were in there, the humidity was 95 degrees and the temperature was 54. They have a great big chiller in the plant. They have, I don't have it on here, but they have some stainless steel pipes running down the wall that condensate. And that's how they get, that brings the temperature down and puts the moisture in the room. And in these aging rooms, they have 4 individual aging rooms, which will be kept at different temperatures and different humidities for the particular cheese that they're making. And the make room where they have just that one vat in, what he wants to do once the business grows, he can put another 3 vats on the first floor, and then on the second floor he can put another 3 vats. So he will grow if it catches on. And here's some of the cheese that we actually sampled. This was, and you can notice on here that this one is a kind of an irregular wheel. This one's larger, the one in the back here is smaller, and they're still working out all of the bugs and the details of how, I shouldn't say bugs, that's not a good word when you're talking about cheese, but all the little things they have to work out to get it, to roll it out. And they call it the Saxton Homestead Creamery. And we believe that Jerry Heimel is the CEO of
I would say,
of
yeah.
the thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we asked him if they're gonna have a retail shop down there where the plant is, and he says because they're zoned industrial, he can't have a retail business down there unless he gets a variance or something from the village and that. But Jerry can attest to that the cheese is very good.
Mm-hmm.
We sampled the 2 different kinds they had made there, and they're both made out of whole milk. And I asked him if he was gonna use any coloring in it to make it orange, and he says that doesn't do anything to the flavor. The cheeses they're making, they're gonna basically have 2 different seasons, and the cheese will be labeled that way. Because the cows are on pasture, in summer, they're gonna make a summer cheese where they're eating their grasses and that their milk is whiter, the cheese is gonna be a little different color and a little different flavor than when they're on fermented feed in the winter, so they're gonna be making, they can make Big Ed summer and Big Ed winter, and the cheeses will have the same name, but the flavors will be different because the animal is on different feed. And they're basically trying for the European cheeses. You know, you have the cows eating the certain kind of grass will give the certain kind of flavored cheese, and it has to be consistent year in and year out. And that's the market they're looking for there. And to date, they still didn't come up with a price, but he was looking at about a $5 a pound cheese. And there's a guy from Brazil that is doing the marketing, so he had a lot of stuff that he shared with us.
I guess,
Is that yellow color, is that wax, or is that the color of the cheese?
That's the color of the cheese. And it's been in the salt brine, and as it dries, there gets like a rime on there, but they don't coat it with a wax or anything. It's just that salt solution and the cheese drying out on the outside.
Is the cheese hard or soft?
It's a soft cheese.
It is spreadable with a knife?
No,
Not that soft.
no, it's soft, you can roll it in your fingers into a ball when
like
you
a,
cut it.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Who are they selling the cheese to at the present time?
Nobody, they didn't roll out the marketing yet. They're still, they wanna make sure they get every size of cheese the same. And right now, they're not scaling it. They laid it out, once the curds turned into cheese, they pressed it down and then they measured out and cut it into squares. Well, you're off a little bit, that's gonna change that. So they're gonna put in some sort of scaling system so they get it exactly right. And they have a very small curd. When that curd is down to an 1/8 by 1/8 inch, that's the size they want. And that just amazed me that it was that small.
Are they in full operation?
No, they're still in R&D. You only make, the week we were there, they only made cheese 3 times that week.
What did he do with the whey already?
The way goes out to, they got somebody picking it
the
up.
classic farm, I think.
I suppose the classic farm, yeah.
What do they do with the cheese now that they made then if they don't sell it?
That one aging room is full
Still
already.
aging.
But,
Yeah.
you know, what are you gonna do with it? Because they don't wanna put it out there if it's not exactly right, because somebody's gonna say, I tasted cheese and it didn't taste good. So, you know, this is just part of doing business. You have to, you know, work out all the details.
They look like cheesecakes from there.
Yeah, they do.
Why are they colored on top? They look like they're more brownish on top?
It's just a shadow.
It's just gotta be
That's
the shadow. There's they soak in the salt brine and then they're turned every 12 hours. When they're in the aging room, they had a great big bucket. Each piece gets wiped down again in that salt solution and turned for 60 days. Pardon?
How do they turn that on that board?
They pull them out, turn them.
No.
The guy actually takes it off. Yeah, he takes it out and wipes it all down and puts it back on the opposite direction.
By hand? They do that all by hand?
All by hand. Yeah, it's very labor intensive. Yeah. And for 60 days they've been turning that cheese and wiping it down every 12 hours.
So was this their first batch then?
The
60 days, because I know that they've
60 days was
Yeah,
the very
this was
first
their-
batch. Yeah.
this
That's
was
why
their
a lot of
very
the
first
cheeses
batch,
are different shapes and sizes here. And by law, they couldn't serve it or even sample until after the 60 days because it was made with whole milk. But the cheese I taste, if the market is right and the price is right, and
Tastes good.
it should sell.
Are you making cheese out of the pasteurized milk too?
Don't know.
Not right.
They have the pasteurizer there. The cheese we tasted was not pasteurized, and the cheese they made that day wasn't.
What are they doing with their pasteurized milk they use on there? Using the pasteurizer.
I I don't
You
know.
know.
No, they're not
Not
shipping
yet.
anything,
They're
no.
not shipping anything.
No, they're not shipping anything out yet, no, no.
The one,
They can't be using all their milk there.
Oh, no. They just bring enough milk, about 5,000 pounds, I think they brought in the winter, just for making this. Like I said, they made cheese 3 times that week, but 2 weeks prior to that, they didn't do anything. They were still working on equipment and things like that. So it's gonna take a while before they get it. And when the rollout comes, it will be, you will know that they're rolling out. And I don't know where they plan on selling it, or what their markets are, but the guy he's been working all over.
Aren't they gonna build a retail store across, on that property across from Bondi's?
No, he didn't say that, no. They thought of that, but I can't speak for Jerry, but the last time we were there, he did not say that, no.
You should show them a picture of when we were there, when that building was empty.
Yeah.
The size of that building and what it looked like compared to now.
You would not believe how much money and stainless steel and stuff they put in there, it's just
the
unbelievable.
floors in these make rooms, I guess you call it, in the floors is where they got all the piping to heat the floor. They don't heat by a furnace or by air, it's all, the floor is heated. The ceilings are about what, 30 feet high?
Yeah, they're 20, I think he said 22 feet high.
And the reason the air, positive air in the make room is with regular, say, cheddar cheese. That's a dry cheese as they refer to it. Where this European cheese is very moist and very susceptible to bacteria getting out of control, if you want to use that. So they, from one end to the other, clean, wash, chlorinate, or whatever they do. It's unbelievable.
Every door had a sink pipe. You come in, you wash your hands, you take the hose and you spray some foam, put your boots in it. We were in there, we had hair nets on and things. It's,
And the positive air, as you mentioned.
And it was just neat seeing it, because we were there when they were pouring the concrete, so we kind of, I don't know how many hours of tape Jerry's got, but he's got quite a few.
Quite a few.
And I thought this would just be neat, because this is something new that's coming in the village again, and to date, I don't believe there's a cheese factory in Manitowoc County, except maybe Sargento's out by Kiel.
Mm-hmm.
Van River Dairy?
They make butter.
It's not the same.
Sargento makes cheese at Kiel, they only package it.
They only package it, so then this will be the only cheese
Only
factory.
cheese.
No,
Hennings, yeah, they got,
But, that they didn't weigh the cheese off before they put it in the hoops to get it, one short, one sideways, things like that. I mean, this is all lax, that they should have known to do that right away. Because you see, you see any cheese factory now, years ago, we didn't do that either, but any cheese factory now, when they start filling the hoops, everything is weighed.
Mm-hmm.
When the buyer gets his 40-pound block, it's going to be 40 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And not 41 or 42, it's 40-pound blocks.
And he wasn't so much interested in weight. The guy kept saying the cheese has to be yay thick, and it's got to be 11 and a half in diameter, and it's more European than American.
yeah, something about 2.5 or 2 5/8 thick was his target.
They're more after the exact same size because it's a European connection on it. And I might add that building inside, it's like
Hospital.
it's like a hospital inside, and the walls are real shiny. You make any noise in there, it just echoes in there. It's because there's no place for anything to hang on to absorb the sound or the germs or whatever.
Well, like, I'm sure in your days when you were pressing the cheese, this was done with that ratchet thing?
Well, you tightened it more or less as tight as you could. Then
Yeah.
After that, then you just lowered the hydraulic jack in the front.
Oh, okay.
And you just loosened that, and that would hold, that would keep pressure on the cheese
Okay.
overnight.
All right.
The cheese in the racks here where they put them in there, they're held by air, but they only got 2 pounds of pressure on them. And he says cheddar, you put a lot more force on cheddar cheese than on these, and that's why the cheese is so soft. When he cut that piece, you can just roll it in your hand, and the smell and the flavor was just unbelievable. It was a good piece of cheese.
Yeah. Very good.
So he didn't tell you what they're gonna do with this
No, but I was thinking maybe I should get one.
I think you get one that costs.
We have a long next meeting.
There we go. We started with the punch, now we get the cheese.
Say years ago, once when we got some old cheddar cheese.
Yeah.
Caraway, I don't know if a guy told you that guy or not. It was a couple of years old, and we had it in the storage in Manitowoc at Follies, and there was 7 cheddars. And when the Follies were cleaning their warehouse out, we found his cheese in there. We didn't even know we had it in there. And so then he says, gave it back to the driver and take it along back. So then Oliver brought it back to the dairy. And here it's moldy and everything else, so I wash all this mold off and I took the bandage off, and it's mold, the caraway was getting moldy inside. And then I cut the cheese up, and then Mr. Wimler from the tavern just happened to come over too. He'd always come over every so often to swoop around. And he says, what are you gonna do with this old moldy cheese? I says, throw it out. Oh, he took that, put it in the box, took it home, threw it on the bar, and every time I would cut cheese, he would be over there to get that moldy cheese and bring it over to the bar, and those guys would eat it up. But that was some of the nicest, I can still remember that caraway cheese being moldy inside, but when you ate it, it just melted in your mouth, that cheese.
Really?
You got your penicillin.
Okay, we have a young lady that put her hand up. She'll identify herself.
I'm Audrey Ertl. I remember my father had cheese at Litzy Cheese Storage, and it was at least 2 years old. And he brought some home, and he cut it off and left it at so it would get room temperature.
Okay.
And he took a butter knife, and he just scraped cheese off, and you could spread it like butter.
Oh.
It was very good.
I would say. That is,
But now, of course, if the date says 6 months old, that's considered aged cheese.
Oh. Okay.
But they don't age it like they used to because it costs too much money.
Right. Thank you. The gentleman here who is taking a spot of someone else, and he's doing a good job, so he'll identify himself and tell us what it's all about. Again.
I'm Charlie Bauer, sitting in for our later Kathy Sixel. I might add, the award-winning Kathy Sixel.
Yes.
And my last 2 lines on Kathy's clipboard here, it says, in December there will be no meeting, and January's topic will be the LTC College. And then it says I'm supposed to wish everybody a blessed holiday from Kathy. And I would like to thank Brian and his wife Chris for giving us the information on the Hickory House tonight. It was very informative, and I want to thank everybody for coming and sharing with us here tonight. And you just want the name and going around?
Maybe where you live at this present time also.
Charlie Bauer from Newton.
Okay. And what do we have here, please?
William Matthias from Cleveland.
Thank you.
Irene Dine, Western Cleveland.
Western Cleveland. Good job. I like that.
Alice Matthias, The Loop.
The Loop. Good. I like this.
Dolores Crest, Cleveland.
Okay. Thank you.
Kathy Wagner, East Cleveland.
Okay.
Joe Kress, Town of Mosel.
Town of Mosel. That's west or south or what?
Kind of the south end of.
South end. Okay. Very good. And who do you hear, please?
Walter Kress, East Cleveland.
East Cleveland. Thank you. And who do you hear, please?
Eugene Moiser from Wendel.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
John Wiegand, Town of Centerville.
Thank you. And who do you hear, please?
Naomi Schmidt, Elkhart Lake.
Elkhart Lake. And thank you for coming this evening.
Dan Schmidt, Elkhart Lake.
Thank you. And who do you hear, please?
Melvin Yeaney from the middle of Cleveland, Linden Street.
Linden Street in the middle. Okay.
Audrey Ertl from St. Nazianz.
Okay. And who do you hear, please?
Carl Ziegler, Mimi.
Okay, thank you.
Paul Jacoby, East Cleveland.
East Cleveland. There we go.
Frederick Jacoby, Manitowoc.
Thank you. And who do you hear, please?
Marie Pippert, Cleveland.
Thank you.
Edith Litzy, Cleveland.
Okay.
Rick Beiersdorf, Mimi.
Thank you.
Victor Schill from Glenview.
Thank you. Yeah, the young lady did a fine job this evening as a presenter. Go right ahead.
Yes, Christine Kalashewski, Cleveland.
Thank you. And who do you have here, please?
Brian Kalashewski, Cleveland.
Brian, you did a marvelous job on that building. Keep up the good work.
Very interesting information, and we learned a lot here too.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for having us.
And and as far as your plans for your facility for the month of December, what do we all have on the charts?
We have a lot of Christmas parties planned.
Okay. Very
It
good.
usually keeps our December pretty busy.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you again for being part of it. And from the videographer, Jerry O'Neill, I do live in the town of Newton. And I just want to thank you one more time for doing a fine job this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We got a gentleman here who has a question.
No, just a comment, John Wiegand, this is Veterans Day. Who are the veterans in the group?
Oh, okay.
Why don't they raise their hands?
That's a good one. Thank you.
Stand up, stand up.
Veterans, stand up.
Stand up, you guys.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Saying it's their day. and
Okay,
stand
I'm going
up.
to ask what armed forces you joined.
U.S. Navy Seabees.
U.S. Navy Seabees. Thank you. And who do you have here, please?
Melvin Yiddish, and I was in the artillery in the U.S. Army, and I was sworn in 53 years ago
Okay.
on this date.
Okay, thank you. And who do you have here, please?
Carl Ziegler, I was in the Army Infantry.
Okay, thank you. Very good. And who do you have here, please?
Paul Jacoby, Army Artillery.
Okay, thank you. And who do you have here, please?
Frederick Jacoby in the Army.
Thank you. Gentleman here who is in the armed forces, and he'll tell us what?
Victor Schill, Army, Artillery, and Infantry.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Gentleman here, please.
Charlie Bauer, United States Marines.
Thank you.
Willard Matthias, U.S. Army.
Thank you. And who do you have here, please?
Walter Kress, Air Force Medic.
Wow, thank you very much.
Hey, I think to show our appreciation, we should give all the veterans a big round
There
of
we go.
applause.
Thank you. Good job, John. Thank you. Very good, folks. Very good. Thank you.
Oh, okay.